The weapon class was a class of destroyers built for the British Royal Navy towards the end of World War II. They were the smaller counterpart to the battle class and were the first new destroyer designs for the Royal Navy since the Second World War. Emergency program. 20 ships were planned, of which only 13 were laid down and 7 were launched, but the cessation of hostilities resulted in only 4 being completed for service. 2 of the ships had been previously ordered as part of the planned C-class, or 15th Emergency Flotilla of 1944, but the orders were changed to the new design. The weapon class were an intermediate size built to take advantage of slipways that were too small to be used to build battle-class destroyers. The hull length was not much increased over the War Emergency Program design, but beam and draft were increased to allow for a displacement increase, as the latter design was grossly overweight with the addition of wartime technology to a relatively small hull. 2 full sets of torpedo tubes were carried, a somewhat retrospective feature in a late war design. Her criticism of the older designs was the use of adjacent boiler rooms. This had been adopted to allow for a single funnel, to lower the silhouette and increase the deck space of the relatively small hull. However, this made the ship vulnerable to being disabled by a single hit amidships. To remedy this, the weapon class adopted the unit system of side-by-side boiler and engine rooms with alternate port-starboard arrangement. This was standard practice in United States Navy ships, but these were generally far larger than the Royal Navy counterparts. The unit arrangement meant that 2 funnels were needed. The forward funnel was trunked up through the foremast and there was a small stump funnel between the torpedo tubes. This led to an unusual and rather unbalanced appearance, similar to that of the Daring class, and the weapons were not the most attractive of ships. The main improvement over earlier ships was to remedy the woefully inadequate arrangements for anti-aircraft defense. To this end, 3 twin 4-inch Mark 14 mountings were carried, remotely controlled by a Type 275 radar-equipped Mark 6 director, allowing full blind fire against aircraft targets. The light battery consisted of 2 of the new SDAAG mounts for twin Bofors 40mm guns and 2 single weapons on Mk. 2 mounts in the bridge wings. The SDAAGs were carried on either side aft, and each had its own Type 262 radar and predictive fire control computer, allowing for automatic blind fire engagement of targets. The SDAAGs were excellent weapons on paper and the firing range, but when exposed to the vibration of a naval gun mounting and the rigor of the elements, they were less than reliable. Coupled with a mounting weight of 17 tons, they were something of a disappointment and the post-war service was limited. Type 293 radar was carried on the lattice foremast for target indication. To increase the anti-submarine capability of the class, it was decided to reduce the number of 4-inch mounts to 2, and to instead carry 2 squid anti-submarine mortars. In battle-axe and broadsword, these replaced B gun. In the others it was X that was lost. The latter arrangement was in fact preferable for the location of the squid, but less for gunnery, as it meant that the main weapons were unable to fire aft, which was a criticism also leveled at the battle class. All 4 ships were plagued by the machinery, as the steam turbines had numerous design flaws. The problems were remedied by removing the steam feed to the lower half of the reversing turbine, but this halved reversing power, and as a consequence these ships were slow to decelerate and handled rather sluggishly. This problem proved fatal for Battle-Axe, when she was unable to maneuver quickly enough to prevent herself being rammed by the frigate Ursa in the Clyde in 1962. The damage was so catastrophic that it was beyond economical repair and she was written off as a total loss and scrapped. The weapons were never an entirely satisfactory design, and were criticized for the light gun armament and overly heavy torpedo outfit. Perhaps best thought of as fast fleet frigates, they undoubtedly possessed a quantum increase in fighting efficiency over the wartime emergency ships, and were more than capable of facing the increased threat of the enemy submarine and aircraft. It is possible that the mysterious Gale-class design, which possessed two twin 4.5-inch semi-automatic Mark V guns, was an attempt to remedy some of the deficiencies of the weapons. Orders and construction. The two ships authorized under the 1942 program as the Centaur and Celt of the CE class were ordered from Whites of Cowes on 3 February 1942. They were renamed Tomahawk and Sword when the order was altered to the new intermediate design. The 1943 program authorized 17 ships to this design. The first 6 were ordered on 2 April 1943: Battle-Axe and Broadsword, Carronade and Claymore, and Crossbow and Culverin. The next 7 were ordered on 24 April: Cutlass and Dagger, Dirk, Grenade and Halberd, Howitzer and Musket. A final 4 were ordered on 27 May: Longbow, Poniard, and Rifle and Spear. 3 ships were cancelled on 22 November 1944: Grenade, Halberd and Poniard. 8 more were cancelled on 15 October 1945: Sword, Claymore, Dagger, Dirk, Howitzer, Longbow, Musket and Spear. Another 4 were cancelled on 23 December 1945: Carronade, Culverin, Cutlass and Rifle. Modification. The class were something of an oddity in the post-war Royal Navy, and did not figure in any of the plans for the fleet of the future. They were laid up by 1956, but there emerged a need for fast fleet aircraft direction ships to accompany the carrier strike force and act as radar pickets, directing fighter cover. The battle class were being modified for this role, but as a stopgap, the weapons were given a more limited conversion. This involved adding a large main-mast amidships for the radar Type 965 with an AK-1 single bedstead antenna array, with the torpedo tubes replaced by radar officers. The director was replaced with a lighter Mrs. 8 pattern, possibly to lower top weight associated with the new radar, and all ships had the squids mounted aft and the guns mounted forward. They lacked specialized height-finding and aircraft direction radar sets that the battles possessed, and so were rapidly superseded and returned to reserve. Ships. Admiral of the Fleet Viscount Cunningham remarked about his sadness at the loss of a ship named Scorpion. His first command had been HMS Scorpion. Following the transfer of S-class destroyer HMS Scorpion to the Royal Netherlands Navy, a medieval form of ballista bore this name, making it suitable for the weapon class. So the Admiralty Ship Names Committee renamed HMS Tomahawk as Scorpion.